The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and expensive cologne as I stood on the balcony of our honeymoon suite in Positano. The infinity pool glimmered in the Italian sunset, but its beauty couldn't pierce the hollow feeling in my chest. My fingers traced the platinum band on my ring finger, heavy, like the weight of the vows I'd spoken 3 days ago. Vows that felt more like shackles with each passing hour. I wasn't supposed to be here. 6 months ago, I was just Elena Russo, a nobody waitress at Bello Cielo, an upscale Italian restaurant in Manhattan, struggling to pay rent and medical bills for my father's heart condition. Now I was Elena Vittori, wife to Dante Vittori, one of the most feared men in New York's underground world, a man whose name was whispered in dark corners, whose shadow made grown men tremble. Admiring the view, his voice, smooth as aged whiskey, startled me from behind. I didn't turn around. It's beautiful. His footsteps were silent on the marble floor. Dante never made noise unless he wanted to. That was the first thing I'd noticed about him that night at Bello Cielo, how he moved like a predator, quiet and calculated. How everyone's eyes followed him, equal parts fear and respect. Not as beautiful as my wife. His arms encircled my waist, pulling me against his chest. I suppressed the shiver that ran down my spine, not from fear, but from something worse, something that confused me even more than my situation, desire. Because despite everything, despite knowing who Dante was and what he'd done, my body still betrayed me whenever he touched me. "You're tense," he murmured, his lips brushing against my neck. "What's troubling you, Tesoro?" "Nothing." The lie came easily now. 6 months of practice. His grip tightened slightly. "Don't lie to me, Elena. You know I can tell." I turned in his arms, looking up into his face, a face that had graced magazine covers of business journals, naming him one of the youngest, most successful real estate developers in New York, a perfect cover for his real empire. At 32, Dante Vittori was devastatingly handsome, with sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw perpetually shadowed with stubble, and eyes the color of smoke, gray and impenetrable, revealing nothing while seeing everything. "I'm just adjusting," I said, forcing a smile. "It's been a whirlwind." His thumb traced my lower lip. "You'll have time to adjust. We have 2 weeks here, then the villa in Tuscany. No distractions, no business, just us." That was precisely what terrified me. 2 weeks alone with Dante, miles from anyone who knew me, anyone who might help. Not that there was anyone. My father had passed 3 months ago. Despite the best medical care money could buy, Dante's money. My friends had slowly disappeared from my life, as Dante had consumed more and more of my time, my space, my existence. "I thought we could have dinner on the terrace tonight," he continued, tucking a strand of my chestnut hair behind my ear. "I've arranged for a private chef, candlelight, wine, the sea below us. Perfect for my perfect bride." I nodded, the motion mechanical. "That sounds lovely." His eyes narrowed slightly, catching the hollowness in my voice. Dante missed nothing. It was what made him both a brilliant businessman and a ruthless crime lord. "You're disappointed with something. Tell me what it is and I'll fix it." That was Dante's solution to everything. Money, power, influence. He wielded them all to bend the world to his will. To bend me to his will. "I'm not disappointed," I insisted. "Just tired from the travel." He studied me for a long moment, and I forced myself not to look away. To look away was to admit guilt, and I couldn't afford that. Not when I was planning what I was planning. "Take a bath," he finally said, stepping back. "Rest. Dinner will be at 8. He checked his Patek Philippe watch, a wedding gift from his underboss, Marco. "You have 2 hours." I nodded, relief flooding through me at the prospect of solitude, however brief. Dante's phone buzzed in his pocket. He frowned, pulling it out, one of 3 he carried. This was the black one, the one that never rang unless it was important. Business important. "I need to take this," he said, already moving toward the door. "I'll have Alessio outside if you need anything." Alessio, my shadow. Officially my security, unofficially my jailer. One of Dante's most trusted men, who followed me everywhere when Dante couldn't. The door closed behind him, and I sagged against the balcony railing. 2 hours. 2 hours to put my plan into motion. I'd been planning for weeks, ever since I'd overheard Dante arranging our honeymoon. The Amalfi Coast, isolated and exclusive, the perfect place to keep me contained. But also the perfect place for me to disappear, if I was smart, if I was careful. I'd squirreled away cash, a little at a time. Small withdrawals from the account Dante had set up for me, amounts too insignificant for him to notice. I'd researched transportation options, memorized bus schedules, identified the nearest police station, though I doubted they'd help. Dante's influence stretched far, especially in Italy, the homeland of his family. The cash and a fake ID I'd procured through a waitress friend at Bello Cielo, before Dante had insisted I quit, were hidden in a compact wrapped in tissue paper at the bottom of my cosmetics bag. The plan was simple. Wait until Dante was occupied with business, slip past Alessio somehow, and make it to the bus station in town. From there, Naples, then a train to Rome, then freedom. Somehow. I moved quickly to the bathroom, turning on the shower to create the illusion I was following Dante's instructions. Instead, I changed into a simple sundress, easier to move in than the designer clothes Dante preferred me in, and flat sandals. I packed only essentials in a small crossbody bag, the cash, ID, a burner phone I'd activated in New York. The shower continued running as I crept to the bedroom door and pressed my ear against it. Silence. I eased it open a crack, peering into the expansive living area of our suite. Empty. Dante must still be on his call, probably on the private terrace off his office in the suite. I could hear the low murmur of his voice, too distant to make out words. Alessio would be outside the main door to our suite. I couldn't go that way. But there was a service entrance. I'd noted it when we arrived, the way the housekeeping staff had slipped in silently to unpack our luggage, while Dante gave me a tour of the suite, if I could reach it without being seen. Heart-hammering, I moved through the living room, keeping low behind furniture. The service door was off the small kitchenette, designed to be discreet, unnoticed by the wealthy patrons of the exclusive resort. I reached for the handle, turning it slowly. Locked. I bit back a curse. Of course it was locked. Dante would have made sure of it. Dante made sure of everything. I frantically looked around for another option. The main balcony wrapped around most of the suite. If I could climb down, but we were 3 stories up, the cliff face dropping away below to the sea. Suicide. Not escape. I was running out of time. The shower couldn't run forever without raising suspicion. I needed to try the main door, find some way past Alessio. I moved back through the living room, freezing when I heard Dante's voice growing louder. He was finishing his call, coming back inside. I ducked into a small powder room off the main area, leaving the door cracked just enough to see out. Dante stalked into view, his face tight with anger. "Incompetence," he muttered, running a hand through his thick black hair. Marco should know better. He paused, head tilting as he listened. The shower was still running. "Elena?" he called. I held my breath. He moved toward the bedroom, disappearing from my view. I had seconds, nothing more. I bolted from the powder room, making for the main door. 3 steps, 2. Going somewhere, Mrs. Vittori, I froze, my hand inches from the doorknob. Slowly, I turned. Alessio stood in a doorway I hadn't noticed. A hidden security room built into the suite. His face was expressionless, but his eyes were cold. I was just looking for your husband?" He stepped aside, gesturing for me to precede him. "He's in the bedroom. Trapped." I was trapped. I walked woodenly back through the living room, Alessio a silent presence behind me. The shower had stopped. The silence was deafening. Dante stood in the center of the bedroom, holding my packed crossbody bag in his hands. His face was a blank mask, more terrifying than any rage. "What is this, Elena?" he asked softly, dangerously. I was just lying to me?" He opened the bag, removing the cash, the fake ID, the burner phone. Each item placed with deliberate care on the bedside table. "Planning to leave me? On our honeymoon?" I swallowed hard. "Dante, I can explain." "Can you?" His voice was conversational, but his eyes were storm clouds. "Can you explain why my wife, the woman I've given everything to, would betray me like this?" "I didn't betray you," I whispered. "No?" He moved closer, his height forcing me to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. What would you call it then? I just needed some air, some space. His hand shot out, gripping my chin. Not painfully, but firmly. More lies. I've indulged your independence, Elena. I've been patient. But this? He gestured to the damning items on the table. This is unacceptable. I heard the door close softly as Alessio withdrew, leaving us alone. Panic clawed at my throat. You don't own me, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Something dangerous flickered in Dante's eyes. Don't I? You made vows, Elena, to honor me, to be faithful. His grip tightened slightly. To stay. Vows made under false pretenses, I shot back, surprising myself with my boldness. Fear had a way of either paralyzing you or pushing you past all caution. You never told me who you really were until it was too late. A mirthless smile curved his lips. You knew. Perhaps not the extent, but you knew. You're too intelligent not to have realized. He was right. I had known. I'd seen the way people reacted to him, the whispered conversations that stopped when he entered a room, the unquestioning obedience of his staff. I'd chosen to ignore the signs, seduced by his attention, his charm, the security he offered when my father's medical bills had been drowning me. By the time I'd found the bloodied shirt in his trash, heard him ordering what could only be a hit on the phone when he thought I was asleep, it had been too late. I was already in too deep. You lied to me about who you are, I insisted, and you're lying to me now. He released my chin, stepping back. Did you really think you could escape me, Elena? That I wouldn't find you? His voice dropped to a whisper. That I would let you go? I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warm Italian evening. What are you going to do? Dante moved to the doors leading to our private terrace and slid them closed. The soft click of the lock engaging sounded like a gunshot in the quiet room. You're mine, Elena, he said, turning back to face me. My wife. Do you understand what that means in my world? There is nothing more sacred, nothing more protected. He crossed the room again, his movements measured, deliberate. And nothing more permanent. I backed away until my legs hit the bed. You can't keep me prisoner. Prisoner? He looked genuinely puzzled for a moment, then understanding dawned. Is that how you see yourself? As my captive? What would you call it? He caught my wrist, pulling me against him with unexpected gentleness. I'd call you my heart, my soul. The only person in this world I would die for, or kill for. I shivered at the casual way he spoke of death. You don't love me, I whispered. You don't even know me. I know everything about you, Elena Marie Russo, born to immigrants from Naples, lost your mother to cancer when you were 12, worked 3 jobs to put yourself through community college while caring for your father. His thumb traced circles on the inside of my wrist, where my pulse raced. Favorite color? Blue. Favorite food? Your grandmother's lasagna. You cry at animal rescue commercials but can sit stone-faced through horror films. You sing in the shower when you think no one can hear. Always Sinatra. Fly me to the moon. I stared at him, unnerved by the accuracy of his knowledge, the intimate details he'd collected like precious gems. That's not love, Dante. That's obsession. Is there a difference? He asked, genuinely curious. I've moved heaven and earth to make you happy, to keep you safe. I saved your father. You couldn't save him, I interrupted, grief mingling with anger. He still died. But not alone, not in pain, not drowning in debt. I gave him dignity, Elena. For you. His hand moved to cup my face. Everything I've done has been for you, including lying, including trapping me in this marriage. His eyes darkened. You said yes. You walked down that aisle of your own free will. Because I didn't know I had a choice. The words burst from me. Because I was afraid of what would happen if I said no. Dante stepped back, as if I'd struck him. For a brief moment, genuine hurt flashed across his face before the mask slipped back into place. You're frightened. Overwhelmed. I understand. His tone was controlled again, reasonable. But this behavior, He gestured to the evidence of my escape attempt. Cannot happen again. Do you understand me, Elena? I said nothing, my silence a small rebellion against his control. Dante moved to the bedroom door, opening it. Alessio, he called. Footsteps approached, and Alessio appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. Have security check the entire perimeter of our suite. All exits, all entrances. I want them sealed except for the main door, and I want someone posted there at all times. Dante's voice was calm, businesslike. And call the chef. Dinner will be delayed by an hour. Yes, boss. Alessio's eyes flickered to me briefly before he disappeared. Dante closed the door and turned to face me again. Now, we have time to discuss this misunderstanding properly. There's nothing to discuss, I said, finding my voice. You've made your position clear. Have I? He loosened his tie, removing it with deliberate movements. I don't think I have, not fully. I watched him warily as he draped the silk tie over a chair and unbuttoned the top buttons of his shirt. Even in casual repose, Dante exuded danger. It was in the coiled readiness of his body, the vigilant awareness in his eyes. The day I saw you at Bello Cielo, he said, I knew you were different, special, because I was the only waitress who didn't cower when you walked in. The words were out before I could stop them. To my surprise, he smiled. A real smile, one that reached his eyes and transformed his face. These rare glimpses of genuine emotion were what had drawn me to him in the first place, what had made me ignore the warning signs. Yes, he admitted. That's exactly why. You dropped an entire tray of drinks when you saw Marco's gun holster, but instead of running away, you looked him in the eye and told him he'd be paying for the damage. The memory flooded back. I had been terrified, recognizing immediately that these weren't ordinary businessmen. But I'd been more afraid of losing my job, of not making rent, of letting my father down. I couldn't afford to be fired, I said quietly, and I couldn't afford to let you go. Dante sat on the edge of the bed, patting the space beside him. When I didn't move, he sighed. Please, Elena, sit with me. Let's talk like adults. Reluctantly, I perched beside him, maintaining as much distance as the bed allowed. I've never pretended to be a good man, he began. I was born into this life. My father was Don Vittori before me, and his father before him. This is my legacy, my blood. Your choice, I corrected. You chose to continue it. He considered this, head tilting. Perhaps. But what were my alternatives? To walk away from power, from family, from duty, to pretend I could be something else? He shook his head. I am what I am, Elena. I've never lied about that. You never told me the truth either. You let me believe you were just a businessman. I am a businessman. Most of my ventures are legitimate now. The other aspects. He shrugged. They're necessary. For protection, for respect. For violence, I added. For control. His jaw tightened. You don't understand my world, because you kept it from me, to protect you. His hand found mine on the bed, covering it before I could pull away. Everything I've done has been to protect you. Including locking me in here, taking away my freedom. Dante's expression hardened. You were trying to run from me. What did you expect me to do? Let me go, I whispered. His grip on my hand tightened painfully. Never. The word hung between us, heavy with finality. You're my wife now. Where I come from, that means something sacred, unbreakable. Where I come from, marriage is a partnership, I countered, not ownership. He released my hand abruptly, standing. Is that what you think? That I see you as a possession? He paced to the window, looking out at the darkening sky. I've given you everything, Elena. A home, security, access to my accounts. I've introduced you to my family, brought you into my inner circle, something I've never done with any woman before you. But you've never given me a choice, I said, rising too. Not a real one. He turned, expression incredulous. I proposed. You said yes. What part of that wasn't a choice? The part where I was trapped between my father's mounting medical bills and your increasingly obvious control over every aspect of my life. My voice rose, months of suppressed frustration breaking through. The part where I realized that saying no to Dante Vittori might be dangerous, not just to me, but to everyone I care about. His face went completely still. You were afraid of me. Not a question, but a realization. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, gripping my upper arms. Have I ever raised a hand to you, threatened you, given you any reason to fear me? Not directly, I admitted. But I've seen what happens to people who cross you. His grip loosened, but he didn't let go. Not you. Never you. His voice dropped to a whisper, almost pleading. You have to know that. For a moment, I glimpsed something raw and vulnerable in his eyes, something that made my certainty waver. Then it was gone, shuttered behind his usual controlled mask. What happened to Michael Rossi? I asked suddenly. Dante went rigid. What? Michael Rossi, the bartender at Bello Cielo who asked me out last year. He disappeared a week later. I watched Dante's face carefully. Everyone said he moved to California suddenly, but he never contacted anyone, never collected his last paycheck. Dante released me, stepping back. You think I had something to do with that? Did you? He was silent for a long moment. He wasn't good enough for you. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. Oh my God, I whispered, hands rising to cover my mouth. What did you do to him? Nothing that concerns you. His voice had gone cold, distant. He's alive, if that matters. Of course it matters. I moved away from him, needing distance. You can't just remove people from my life because you don't approve of them. I can, and I will, if they pose a threat. He asked me on a date. How is that a threat? Dante's eyes flashed. He wanted what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice chilled me. I wasn't yours then. I'd only met you twice. I knew the first time I saw you. He stepped closer again, invading my space. Some things are destined, Elena. Written in the stars. Us. We were inevitable. I shook my head, backing away until I hit the wall. That's not how real life works, Dante. That's not how love works. What do you know of love? He challenged. The boys who took you to high school dances? College flings? Meaningless flirtations with men like Rossi? He braced his hands on either side of my head, caging me between his arms. I love you with everything I am. I would burn cities to the ground for you. I would slaughter armies. I would die 1,000 deaths. His intensity frightened me, but what frightened me more was the small part of me that responded to it. The part that found his devotion, however twisted, intoxicating. That's not love, I insisted, more to myself than to him. That's possession, obsession. Call it what you will. His face was inches from mine, but it's real. And it's forever. A knock at the door interrupted us. Dante straightened, composing himself in an instant. Enter, he called. Alessio appeared in the doorway. Security check is complete, boss. All exits secured. The chef will serve dinner in 45 minutes. Good. Dante straightened his shirt, every inch the controlled capo once more. And the other matter we discussed? Taken care of, Alessio replied, his eyes deliberately not looking in my direction. What other matter? What had Dante ordered while I was in the shower? My stomach twisted with dread. Thank you, Alessio. That will be all. The door closed behind him, and we were alone again. What was that about? I asked. Business. Dante's tone made it clear the subject was closed. He checked his watch. You should get ready for dinner. I'm not hungry. Nevertheless, you will join me. It wasn't a request. Wear the blue dress, the one I had sent from Milan. It brings out your eyes. I wanted to refuse, to continue fighting, but exhaustion suddenly washed over me. What was the point? I was trapped here, at least for now. Better to bide my time, to wait for a better opportunity than to push Dante to greater vigilance. Fine, I said flatly. He studied me, reading my surrender for what it was, temporary, strategic. Elena. His voice softened. I don't want to be your jailer. I want to be your husband, your protector, Your partner. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Give us a chance. Give me a chance to show you how good we can be together. I didn't respond, turning away to open the closet where the dress he'd specified hung among dozens of other designer garments he'd purchased for me. Dante sighed. I'll leave you to change. He moved to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. I love you, Elena. One day you'll understand what that means. The door closed behind him, and I sagged against the closet, trembling. What had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, how was I going to get out? Dinner was a masterpiece of culinary art served on the private terrace under the stars. Candlelight cast a warm glow over the white tablecloth, glinting off crystal glasses and silver cutlery. The private chef had prepared course after course of Italian specialties. Burrata with heirloom tomatoes, handmade pasta with truffle, sea bass poached in lemon and herbs. It was perfect, romantic, like a dream. Except for the 2 security men standing discreetly by the terrace doors, and the knowledge that every exit was guarded. I picked at my food, unable to enjoy it despite its quality. Dante watched me from across the table, sipping his wine, seemingly content with the silence that stretched between us. Not to your taste? He finally asked as the chef cleared our main course dishes. It's delicious, I said automatically. I'm just not very hungry. You need to eat, he said, concern creasing his brow. You're losing weight. I can see it in your face. I hadn't been eating well for weeks, anxiety about my planned escape gnawing at my appetite. Of course he'd noticed. Dante noticed everything. I'll try the dessert, I offered, a peace gesture. He nodded, signaling to the chef who brought out panna cotta topped with fresh berries and a delicate chocolate tuile. Tell me what you're thinking, Dante said, as I took a small bite. I considered lying, then decided against it. Lies only dug me deeper. I'm thinking that this is all wrong, I said quietly. That I should be happy on my honeymoon, not plotting escape. A flash of pain crossed his features before he schooled them back to neutrality. At least you're honest, he said dryly. That's something. Why did you want to marry me, Dante? Really? I set down my spoon. There are so many women who would kill to be in my position. Beautiful women. Connected women. Women who understand your world and would embrace it. I didn't want them, he said simply. I wanted you. But why? He considered the question, swirling the wine in his glass. Do you believe in fate, Elena? No. A smile touched his lips. I didn't either. Not until I saw you. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. My grandfather used to tell me that when I met the right woman, I would know. That something inside me would recognize her, like my soul had been waiting. He shook his head. I thought it was an old man's sentimentality. And then I walked into that restaurant and you were standing there, and something shifted. His gaze held mine, intense and unwavering. I knew. In that instant, I knew you were meant to be mine. I shivered despite the warm evening air. That's not a reason, Dante. That's a feeling. An impulse. The strongest I've ever felt. He reached across the table, catching my hand before I could withdraw it. I've built my life on instinct, Elena. On knowing things before they happen. On sensing danger, opportunity. It's kept me alive. Made me wealthy. Powerful. His thumb stroked my palm. And every instinct I have tells me you're the one. The only one. There was such certainty in his voice that for a moment, I almost believed him, almost wanted to believe him. You don't even know who I really am, I said softly. You've built this idea of me in your head, but it's not me. Not really. Then show me. His grip tightened. Show me who you really are, Elena. I want to know. Every thought, every dream, every fear. Even the ones that include escaping you. His jaw tightened, but he didn't let go of my hand, especially those. I want to know what frightens you, so I can fix it. You can't fix everything, Dante. Watch me try. I pulled my hand away, needing distance from his magnetic intensity. What if what frightens me is you? Can you fix that? A shadow crossed his face. I would never hurt you. Not physically, maybe, but there are other ways to hurt someone. The chef appeared with coffee, interrupting our conversation. Dante thanked him, dismissing him for the evening. We were alone now, except for the ever-present security hovering at the edges of the terrace. "Tell me what you want, Elena," Dante said after a moment, his voice soft. "Tell me how to make you happy." The simplicity of the question caught me off guard. "I want freedom," I said before I could stop myself. "I want choices. I want to not feel like a prisoner or a possession." He nodded slowly, considering my words. "And if I give you that? Freedom within certain boundaries, choices within reason. Would you stay? Would you try to make this marriage work?" I stared at him, searching for the trap. "What boundaries?" "Security stays," he said immediately. "Non-negotiable. You are the wife of Dante Vittori. That makes you a target, whether you accept my world or not." He leaned back in his chair. "You can work if you want, not as a waitress. That's beneath you now. But something suitable. Art gallery, perhaps. You have good taste. And if I want to study, go back to school?" I'd always dreamed of finishing my business degree, a dream cut short by my father's illness. "Of course. Any university you want. I'll make the arrangements." He made it sound so simple, as if snapping his fingers could open any door. And for him, it probably could. "And my friends? Will you let me see them again?" His expression darkened. "The ones who abandoned you at the first sign of difficulty. The ones who never called when your father was dying?" He shook his head. "You deserve better friends, Elena. They were afraid of you," I countered. "Of your men, following me everywhere, interrogating them, protecting you," he corrected. "Vetting the people in your life. And removing the ones you didn't approve of, like Michael?" Dante's jaw tightened. "Michael Rossi was not just asking you for a date. He was collecting information about me, about my operations, working for the Calabresi family." I blinked, genuinely surprised. "What?" "The bartender job was his cover. He targeted you because he knew I was interested." Dante's expression was grim. "If I hadn't intervened, he would have used you to get to me, then discarded you. Or worse." I wanted to disbelieve him, but something in his tone rang true. And Michael had been oddly persistent, asking questions about Dante, about who he met with at the restaurant. "You could have told me that," I said, "instead of lying. Would you have believed me, or would you have thought I was making excuses to control you?" I had no answer for that. The truth was, I probably wouldn't have believed him. Dante sighed, running a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration that humanized him. "This is the problem, Elena. You see only what you want to see. You think I'm some monster who's taken over your life, when everything I've done has been to protect you, to give you a better life. By deciding what's best for me without asking. Sometimes people don't know what's best for themselves." His tone was maddeningly reasonable. "Sometimes they need guidance. That's not your decision to make. As your husband, it is." He held up a hand when I started to protest. "In my world, in my family, the husband protects, provides, makes the hard choices, and the wife just obeys?" I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. To my surprise, Dante laughed, a genuine laugh that transformed his face. "You've met my mother, Elena. Does she strike you as a woman who simply obeys?" I thought of Sofia Vittori, elegant, formidable, with eyes that missed nothing and a tongue that could slice through steel. She had welcomed me into the family with cool assessment and grudging approval. No, she was no one's docile wife. "Your mother is different." "She's exactly what I expect you to be," Dante countered. "Strong, intelligent, a true partner to my father for 40 years. She has her domains, he has his. They respect each other's authority, but she has no choice but to accept what he does, who he is. She chose him, knowing exactly who he was." Dante's gaze sharpened. "Just as you chose me. I didn't know. You knew." His voice cut through my protest. "Perhaps not the extent, not the details, but you knew I wasn't just a businessman. You saw how people reacted to me, the deference, the fear. You saw my men, their weapons. You chose to ignore it because it was convenient. The accusation stung because there was truth in it. I had suspected, had seen the signs, had chosen to look away. You needed help with your father's medical bills, he continued relentlessly. You needed security, protection. I provided them. I gave you what you needed, what you wanted. I never asked for any of that. You didn't have to ask. I saw the desperation in your eyes that first night, when you stayed late counting tips, calculating if you'd make rent. I saw the exhaustion when you worked double shifts during your father's treatments. His voice softened. I saw you, Elena. All of you. Your pride, your determination, your refusal to accept charity. I remembered how it had started, small things. The restaurant owner suddenly offering me better shifts, more hours. The hospital finding financial assistance programs my father qualified for. The unexpected inheritance from a distant relative I'd never heard of. Just enough to cover 3 months of rent while I cared for my father in his final days. All Dante. All his machinations, pulling strings I hadn't even known existed. You manipulated my entire life, I whispered. Engineered everything to make me dependent on you. I took care of you, he corrected. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing, Dante stood, moving around the table to kneel beside my chair. The gesture was so unexpected, so at odds with his usual commanding presence, that I froze. Elena. He took my hands in his. I love you. More than I've ever loved anyone or anything. More than power. More than respect. More than life itself. His eyes, usually so guarded, were open and vulnerable. Tell me what you want, what you truly want, and if it's within my power to give it to you, it's yours. I want my freedom, I said softly. Pain flashed across his features. Then you don't really mean what you say. Anything but that. He rose abruptly, turning away to brace his hands on the terrace railing. The security men tactfully retreated further into the shadows, giving us the illusion of privacy. Do you understand what would happen if I let you go? He asked, his back still to me. The message it would send? A Vittori, abandoned by his wife? He shook his head. It would be seen as weakness, disrespect. Every rival family would move against me, thinking I'd gone soft. So this is about your reputation? Your power? He turned, his expression fierce. It's about keeping you safe. The moment you walk away from me, you lose my protection. How long do you think you'd last? A day? A week? Before someone decided to use you against me? No one would care about me if I wasn't with you. You're my wife. That doesn't change, whether you're by my side or not. He crossed back to me, gripping the arms of my chair, caging me in. The Calabresi would take you in a heartbeat. So would the Russos, the Tanners. They'd use you as leverage, as revenge. His voice dropped to a whisper. Do you know what they'd do to you, Elena? What they'd send me, piece by piece, to break me? The graphic implication turned my stomach. You're trying to frighten me. I'm trying to make you understand. He straightened, running a hand down his face. This isn't a normal marriage. It can't be. I'm not a normal man, but I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make you happy, to give you everything your heart desires. Except the one thing I want most. Yes. No apology, no compromise, just cold truth, except that. I stood, suddenly exhausted by the circular conversation. I'd like to go to bed now. Dante studied me, probably reading the defeat in my posture. Of course. You've had a long day. He offered his arm, the perfect gentleman. I'll escort you. I hesitated. Small battles, I reminded myself. Save my strength for what matters. We walked in silence through the suite to the bedroom. At the door, he paused. I have some business to attend to, he said. I'll join you later. Business. At midnight, in a remote resort on the Amalfi Coast. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. Good night, Dante. He caught my hand as I turned away, bringing it to his lips in a gesture both courtly and possessive. Sweet dreams, my love. I waited until the door closed behind him, then sank onto the bed, tears finally spilling over. I was trapped. Completely, utterly trapped in a gilded cage with a man who claimed to love me but refused to let me go. A man who, despite everything, still made my heart race when he looked at me with those intense gray eyes. I woke to the sensation of being watched. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting shadows across the room. I wasn't alone. Dante sat in an armchair in the corner, still dressed in his dinner clothes, a tumbler of what was probably scotch in his hand. "You're awake," he said softly. I sat up, pulling the covers around me. "How long have you been there?" "An hour, maybe 2. He set the glass aside. "You talk in your sleep. Did you know that?" Cold fear washed over me. What did I say? My name. Over and over. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Sometimes you sounded frightened. Sometimes—" A small smile played at his lips. "Not so frightened." Heat rushed to my face. Even in sleep, my body betrayed me, responding to him despite everything my mind knew about who he was, what he'd done. "What do you want, Dante?" "It's the middle of the night. I've been thinking about our conversation." He rose, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. "About what you said. About freedom." I tensed, suddenly alert. And I realized something. He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You feel trapped because you don't understand. You see only the restrictions, the security, the boundaries. You don't see what I'm protecting you from." "So show me," I challenged. "If you want me to understand your world, let me see it, all of it." He went still, his eyes searching mine. "You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. Show me who you really are, Dante. Not the polished businessman, not the devoted husband. Show me the man everyone fears." It was a desperate gambit. If he showed me his world, perhaps I'd find a weak point, a way out. Or at least a better understanding of what I was dealing with. "You think that will make you leave," he said, reading me as easily as ever. "That seeing the darkness will drive you away. Maybe. Or maybe it will help me accept who you are." He considered this, head tilting slightly. "It would be dangerous. More dangerous than being kept in the dark? Than wondering constantly what you're hiding from me?" Dante stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "My father never let my mother see that side of him. He kept it separate, protected her." "And is that what you want? A wife who lives in a bubble, pretending not to know what pays for her clothes, her jewelry, her comfortable life?" He turned, his expression contemplative. "No. That's not what I want from you." "Then stop treating me like a child who can't handle the truth, or a possession that needs to be locked away for safekeeping." Dante was silent for a long moment, considering. Then he nodded. Decision made. "All right, Elena. You want the truth? I'll give it to you." He checked his watch. "Get dressed. Wear something practical. Dark colors." I blinked, caught off guard by his sudden shift. "Now? It's the middle of the night. Best time for the education you're asking for." His tone brooked no argument. 5 minutes. He left the room, closing the door behind him. I sat frozen for a moment, wondering if I'd just made a terrible mistake. Then I moved, sliding out of bed and quickly pulling on black jeans, a dark sweater and flat boots. When I emerged from the bedroom, Dante was waiting, phone in hand. He'd changed too. Gone was the elegant dinner attire, replaced by dark jeans, a black Henley that clung to his muscled frame, and a leather jacket. He looked dangerous in a way his bespoke suits never revealed, like the predator I'd always sensed lurking beneath the polished exterior. "Ready?" he asked, his eyes sweeping over me appraisingly. I nodded, sudden nerves making my stomach clench. "Alessio," Dante called. The door to the security room opened, and Alessio appeared, dressed similarly to Dante. His eyes registered mild surprise at seeing me, but he said nothing. "The car?" Dante asked. "Ready downstairs. Perimeter is clear." "Good." Dante turned to me. "Stay close to me. Do exactly as I say when I say it. No questions, no hesitation. Understood?" The gravity in his voice sent a chill down my spine. "Yes. If anything happens, Alessio will get you out. You go with him immediately. No arguments." I nodded again, fear and a strange excitement mingling in my veins. Dante's hand closed around mine, warm and steady. "Let's go." We moved through the suite to the main door. 2 more men waited in the hallway. Marco, Dante's underboss who I'd met at our wedding, and another whose name I didn't know, both nodded respectfully to Dante, their eyes carefully avoiding mine. We took a service elevator down to a garage level I hadn't known existed beneath the resort. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows waited, engine already running. Another identical vehicle was parked behind it. "Second car follows," Dante explained, as he ushered me into the back seat of the lead SUV. "Standard procedure." He slid in beside me, Alessio taking the front passenger seat. Marco and the unnamed man got into the second vehicle. The driver, a broad-shouldered man with a military bearing, didn't speak as we pulled out of the garage and into the night. No one spoke. The silence was heavy, expectant. "Where are we going?" I finally asked as we wound down the cliffside road, away from the resort. Dante's hand found mine in the darkness. "To meet someone who owes me money." The simple statement contained multitudes of implication. This wasn't a friendly business meeting. Not at 1 a.m, not with this level of security. We drove for nearly an hour, leaving the tourist areas of the Amalfi Coast behind, winding deeper into the countryside. Eventually, we turned onto a narrow dirt road that led to what appeared to be an abandoned farmhouse, its stone walls crumbling in places, dark windows like empty eye sockets against the night sky. The SUV stopped 100 yards from the house. The second vehicle pulled up beside us. "Wait here," Dante ordered, turning to me. "What happens inside isn't for you to see. This is just the introduction you wanted." "No," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "You said you'd show me. All of it." His jaw tightened. "Elena, I'm not a child, Dante. I know what you are, what you do. Show me." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, perhaps, or resignation. He nodded once, sharply. "Stay behind me. Don't speak unless I tell you to. And remember what I said about Alessio." We exited the vehicles, the men forming a loose formation around us as we approached the farmhouse. The night was eerily quiet, just the sound of gravel crunching beneath our feet and the distant call of an owl. Dante didn't knock. He simply pushed open the door, stepping into darkness that was quickly dispelled as someone inside flipped on a light. The interior was sparse, bare concrete floor, peeling paint on the walls. A single wooden chair stood in the center of what had once been a living room, and in it sat a man. He was in his 40s, I guessed, with thinning hair and the soft physique of someone who'd once been athletic, but had let himself go. His hands were tied behind his back, his ankles secured to the chair legs. A purpling bruise marred his left cheek, and dried blood crusted around his nostrils. 3 men stood around him, more of Dante's soldiers, I presumed. They straightened as we entered, nodding deferentially. "Don Vittori," one greeted, and I blinked at the formal title. I'd never heard anyone address Dante that way before. "Report," Dante said, his voice different now, harder, colder. "Subject was apprehended leaving his mistress's apartment in Naples, as you ordered. No witnesses. We brought him here for questioning as instructed." Dante nodded, then turned to the bound man. "Mr. Ferretti, we meet again." The man's eyes widened, darting from Dante to me, then back again. Fear radiated from him like a physical force. "Don Vittori, please," he stammered. "There's been a misunderstanding." "Has there?" Dante's voice was conversational, almost friendly. "You borrowed 2 million euros from me 6 months ago for your real estate development. The terms were quite clear. 3 months to repay, with interest." He checked his watch. "You're 3 months overdue." "That's not a misunderstanding, Mr. Ferretti. That's theft. The project had delays, permits, contractors. You know how it is. I just need more time." "Time." Dante smiled, and it was nothing like the smile he gave me. This was the smile of a shark. "Time is a luxury you've run out of." I stood frozen against the wall, Alessio a silent shadow beside me. This was Dante as I'd never seen him. Cold, calculated, radiating power and menace without raising his voice or making a single threatening move. "The building is almost finished," Ferretti pleaded. "Another month, 2 at most, and I can pay you every cent, with additional interest. The problem, Mr. Ferretti, isn't just that you failed to repay my money. Dante circled the chair slowly. It's that instead of coming to me to renegotiate terms when you realized you'd missed the deadline, you tried to run. You liquidated assets, moved money offshore, bought plane tickets to Brazil. He stopped directly in front of the man. Did you think I wouldn't know? Ferretti's face crumpled. My family will be taken care of. Dante's tone made it unclear whether this was a threat or a promise. The question is, what happens to you? I must have made a small noise because Dante's head turned fractionally in my direction. His expression didn't change, but something passed between us. A challenge. A test. He was showing me exactly what I'd asked to see. Please. Ferretti sobbed. I have children. So do many men who honor their debts. Dante cut him off. Your poor choices are not my concern. He turned to Marco, who had entered silently behind us. Options? Marco stepped forward. The property could cover most of the debt if we take ownership immediately. He has a vacation home in Sardinia worth perhaps $500,000. Vehicles, investments, various assets we can liquidate. He shrugged. We'd still be short, but not by much. And the message that sends? Dante asked. That you can borrow from me, try to run, and the worst that happens is you lose some property? There are other ways to send messages, Marco suggested quietly, his eyes flicking to the cowering man. I knew what he meant. Violence. Permanent consequences. Dante considered, his face impassive. Mr. Ferretti, I'm a reasonable man. I understand business setbacks. What I don't understand is disloyalty. He leaned down, meeting the terrified man's eyes. If I let you live, and that's still an if, how do I know you won't disappear the moment you're free? I swear, Don Vittori, on my children's lives, don't. Dante's voice was sharp. Don't bring your children into this. Your word should be enough. Is it? Yes, Ferretti whispered. Yes, I swear. Dante straightened, decision apparently made. Here's what's going to happen. You will sign over the development property to me today. All of it. I'll complete the project, and when it sells, if there's profit beyond my original investment, plus the interest you owe, you'll receive 10%. Ferretti's eyes widened in disbelief. But that property is worth twice what I owe you. Was worth, Dante corrected. Before you tried to run. Before you made me send my men to find you, taking time away from their families, for more important matters. His voice hardened. The price of betrayal is high, Mr. Ferretti. Be grateful I'm not collecting it in blood. He turned to Marco. Draw up the papers. I want them signed before sunrise. Then escort Mr. Ferretti back to his family with a reminder of what happens if he ever crosses me again. Marco nodded. And the physical reminder? Dante's eyes flicked to me, then back to Marco. A finger. Left hand, not the right. He'll need to sign documents. My stomach lurched. Ferretti made a strangled sound. Unless... Dante turned back to the bound man. You have something else to offer me, something of equal value to help me forget this unfortunate incident. Hope bloomed on Ferretti's battered face. The Calabresi, he said quickly. I have information about their new operation in Naples, the one they're keeping from you. Dante went very still. What operation? They've taken over the Port Authority, customs officials. They're bringing in shipments without inspection, without your knowledge or approval, cutting you out of your own territory. I watched Dante's face carefully. This was significant information. I could tell by the way the atmosphere in the room changed, the way Marco stepped forward eagerly. Details, Dante demanded. Names, dates, everything you know. Ferretti talked for nearly 15 minutes, spilling information about shipping schedules, bribed officials, smuggled goods. With each revelation, the tension in Dante's shoulders eased slightly. When Ferretti finally fell silent, Dante nodded to Marco. Verify it. If it checks out... He looked back at the desperate man. You keep your finger, and perhaps we renegotiate the terms of your property transfer. 10% becomes 25%. Thank you, Don Vittori. Thank you. Relief made Ferretti sag in his bonds. Dante turned to me, his expression unreadable. Satisfied with your education so far? I couldn't speak, couldn't find words to express the tumult of emotions churning inside me. "Take her back to the car," Dante instructed Alessio. "I'll finish here." Alessio's hand closed gently but firmly around my upper arm, guiding me toward the door. I went without resistance, desperate for fresh air, for distance from the scene I'd just witnessed. Outside, the night was cool and clear, stars scattered across the velvet sky like diamonds. I gulped in oxygen, trying to steady my racing heart. "He was going to cut off that man's finger," I whispered. Alessio, standing silently beside me, shrugged. He was being merciful. Most would have taken much more. Merciful? I turned to him, incredulous. "How is maiming someone merciful?" "The man stole 2 million euros and tried to flee the country," Alessio said matter-of-factly. "In our world, that usually means death. Not just for him, but sometimes for his family as well. To send a message." His dark eyes held mine. "The boss is different, more modern in his methods. Less blood, more business. It's why many respect him." I tried to process this, to fit it into my understanding of the man I'd married. The man who held me tenderly at night, who remembered how I took my coffee, who had sat by my father's hospital bed, and read to him when I needed to sleep. "This is why he didn't want you to see," Alessio continued quietly, "this part of his life. He wanted to protect you from it, by keeping me ignorant, in a bubble. By keeping you innocent." Alessio's gaze was surprisingly gentle. "The boss, he sees something in you, something pure. He doesn't want to taint it with..." He gestured to the farmhouse. Before I could respond, the door opened and Dante emerged, followed by Marco. His face was composed, serene almost, as if we'd just left a business meeting rather than an interrogation. "Take her back to the resort," he instructed Alessio. "I have other matters to attend to tonight." "I'm not going anywhere without you," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. Dante's eyebrows rose slightly. "This isn't a debate, Elena. You promised to show me your world. All of it. One man tied to a chair isn't all of it. You've seen enough for one night. That's not for you to decide." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You can't have it both ways, Dante. Either I'm your equal, your partner, someone you trust to handle the truth, or I'm a possession to be protected and controlled. Which is it?" Dante's jaw tightened as he stared down at me, conflict evident in his eyes. The men around us studiously looked away, pretending not to witness this challenge to their boss's authority. "You don't know what you're asking," he said softly, for my ears alone. "I'm asking you to trust me, to see me as more than something fragile that needs protection." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "Fine. But you stay in the car for the next stop, non-negotiable." I wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped me. There were lines he wouldn't cross, risks he wouldn't take with my safety. I had to respect that, just as I wanted him to respect my choices. "Agreed." Surprise flickered across his face, quickly replaced by approval. "Let's go." The drive was longer this time, taking us deeper into the Italian countryside, away from the coast. No one spoke. Tension filled the vehicle, electric and unpredictable. I could feel Dante's energy beside me, tightly coiled, controlled. This was a different man from the one who'd held me on our balcony, who'd toasted our marriage days ago. This was Don Vittori, head of one of New York's most powerful crime families, conducting business on his ancestral soil. We eventually arrived at what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse near a small marina. 3 other vehicles were already parked in the shadows. Sleek, expensive cars with darkened windows. Dante turned to me as our driver cut the engine. "You stay here. Alessio stays with you." His voice left no room for argument. "If anything happens, anything, he gets you out. Immediately." "What's happening here, Dante?" "A meeting with the Calabresi family. The ones Ferretti mentioned." His eyes were hard, focused. "They've been making moves against me, testing boundaries. It ends tonight." Fear gripped me. "Is it dangerous?" For the first time since we'd left the resort, his expression softened. His hand cupped my cheek. "Everything in my world is dangerous, Tesoro. But don't worry. No one touches what's mine." Before I could respond, he leaned forward and kissed me, hard, possessive, almost desperate. Then he was gone, sliding out of the vehicle, Marco and the others falling in around him as they approached the warehouse. He'll be fine, Alessio said from the front seat, misreading my expression. The boss knows what he's doing. I wasn't worried for Dante. I was worried about what he would do. The casual way he'd ordered a man's finger removed had shaken me to my core. What would he do to people who had actively moved against him? How many people has he killed? I asked abruptly. Alessio's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, assessing. The boss doesn't kill indiscriminately, he said carefully. Only when necessary. For protection. For respect. Not a denial. Not a reassurance. A justification. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting from me, Mrs. Vittori. His tone was respectful but firm. This was a line he wouldn't cross, even for the boss's wife. We sat in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. I tried not to imagine what was happening inside the warehouse. The conversations, the threats, the potential for violence. Suddenly, the crack of gunshots split the night. 1, 2, 3, in rapid succession. I jerked upright. Dante! Stay down! Alessio barked, drawing his weapon and crouching low in his seat, scanning the surroundings. More gunshots followed, muffled by the warehouse walls but unmistakable. My heart hammered against my ribs. Despite everything, the lies, the manipulation, the control, the thought of Dante being hurt sent ice through my veins. The warehouse door burst open and figures spilled out, Dante's men, moving with tactical precision, weapons drawn. In their midst was Dante himself, walking calmly, unhurried, straightening the cuffs of his jacket, as if he were leaving a business lunch rather than a gunfight. Relief washed over me, so intense it left me dizzy. He was alive, unharmed. The driver started the engine as Alessio spoke rapidly into a radio. Dante reached the vehicle and slid in beside me, his movements controlled, his expression impassive. Go, he ordered, and we pulled away, the second SUV following close behind. I stared at him, searching for injuries, for blood, for any sign of what had happened inside. Are you hurt? No. His voice was cold, distant. He checked his watch. We need to be back at the resort before dawn. We have a breakfast reservation at 9. The disconnection between gunshots and breakfast reservations was so jarring I almost laughed. What happened in there? Business was concluded. He looked out the window, his profile sharp against the darkness. The Calabres now understand that crossing me has consequences. Did you... I couldn't finish the question. His eyes shifted to mine. Kill them? No. That would start a war. Bad for business. A small, humorless smile curved his lips. But they won't forget tonight's message. Or the cost of it. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know. The reality of Dante's world was crashing over me in waves, drowning the last of my illusions. This is who I am, Elena. His voice was quiet now, almost gentle. This is the world I inhabit, the world you married into. I didn't know, I whispered. Not really. You knew enough. His hand found mine in the darkness, gripping it tightly. And now you know more. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? It was the question I'd been asking myself all night. What did I want? Who was I in this new reality? I don't know, I admitted. He nodded, accepting this. Fair enough. We rode in silence back to the resort, arriving just as the first gray light of dawn touched the horizon. The suite was exactly as we'd left it. Elegant, luxurious, a world away from farmhouses with bound men and warehouses with gunshots. I moved to the balcony, needing air, space to think. Dante followed, keeping a respectful distance. Was this what you wanted? He asked. To see the monster beneath the man? I turned to face him. Is that how you see yourself? As a monster. It's how most would see me after tonight. His eyes searched mine. How do you see me, Elena, now that you know the truth? The question hung between us, weighted with possibility. How did I see him? The man who'd orchestrated my father's care and my financial rescue. The man who'd kept me prisoner in gilded cages. The man who ordered violence with a gesture. The man who held me like I was precious. Irreplaceable. I see. Complexity, I said finally. I see someone shaped by his world, his legacy. Someone who does terrible things but believes they're necessary. I stepped closer. I see a man who wants love, but doesn't know how to accept it without ownership. Pain flickered across his features. Is that what you think? That I see you as a possession, don't you? You locked me in. You've made it clear you'll never let me go. Because I can't bear to lose you. The admission seemed torn from him, because the thought of living without you is unbearable. That's not love, Dante. That's fear. He flinched as if I'd struck him. Perhaps you're right. He moved to the balcony railing, looking out at the sea. I've never feared anything in my life. Not death, not pain, not failure. Until you. He turned back to me. Until the thought of you walking away. The raw vulnerability in his voice reached something deep inside me. This was Dante stripped of his power, his control. Just a man terrified of losing what he valued most. What if I promised to stay? I asked softly. Not because I'm trapped, but because I choose to. Would you let me have that choice? Hope and suspicion warred in his expression. You would stay, knowing what you know? I don't know, I admitted. That's the point, Dante. I need the freedom to make that decision myself. Not under duress, not out of fear or obligation, a real choice. He was silent for a long moment, the internal battle evident in his tense posture, the muscle jumping in his jaw. Finally, he spoke. What would that look like? This choice. It would mean no more locks, no more guards following my every move. The freedom to go where I want, see who I want. I held his gaze. It would mean trust, Dante, real trust. And if you chose to leave, then you would let me go, without pursuit, without consequences. He shook his head immediately. I can't promise that. The security stays, Elena, non-negotiable. You're my wife, and that makes you a target whether you're with me or not. Security I can accept, being followed everywhere, having my friends investigated, being locked in, that I can't. Dante paced the balcony, agitation evident in every line of his body. And if I give you this freedom, this choice, what do I get in return? The chance that I might stay because I want to, not because I have to. I moved closer, stopping him with a hand on his arm. The chance at something real between us. Something based on mutual choice, mutual respect. He caught my hand, holding it against his chest. I could feel his heartbeat, strong and rapid. And if I say no, if I keep you locked away, safe in mine, then you'll never know if I'm here because I want to be or because I have no choice. You'll always wonder. Every time I smile at you, touch you, make love to you, you'll wonder if it's real or just survival. The words hit their mark. I saw it in his eyes, the realization that force and control could give him my body, my presence, but never my heart, never my soul. I'm not good at relinquishing control, he said, a wry understatement that startled a laugh from me. I've noticed. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. What would you do if I gave you this freedom? Where would you go? I considered the question seriously. I'd want to finish my business degree, to work, to have some independence, to see my old friends, make new ones. I met his eyes. But I'd still be your wife, Dante. I'd still come home to you, if you gave me reason to want to. And if I continued my business, my world. This was the hardest question. Could I accept who he was, what he did? The violence, the intimidation, the criminal empire? I don't know, I said honestly. But I'd try to understand it better, to see it as you see it. And maybe you could try to change some things, to find more legitimate paths. He looked skeptical. My family has operated this way for generations, and yet you've already changed things. Alessio said you're more modern, less violent than your predecessors. Why not continue that evolution? Dante was quiet for a long moment, considering. It would be difficult, dangerous even. To change too quickly is to show weakness. Or vision, I countered. Leadership. A new light entered his eyes. Interest, challenge. You think I could transform the Vittori Empire? Make it legitimate? I think if anyone could, it would be you. And I meant it. Dante's intelligence, his strategic mind, his determination, they could be forces for transformation as easily as domination. The first rays of sunrise touched his face, illuminating the hope that had replaced the cold calculation of hours before. He looked younger suddenly, unburdened. "A partnership," he said slowly, testing the concept. "You and I, building something new together, something better." "It would take time," I cautioned. "Trust doesn't come overnight, not after everything that's happened. I'm a patient man." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "When it matters." I wasn't convinced of that, but I appreciated the sentiment. "So, what happens now?" Dante straightened. Decision made. "Now, we begin again." He released my hand, stepping back. "Elena Vittori, would you do me the honor of staying with me, choosing me of your own free will, not as my possession, but as my partner, my equal, my heart?" The formal question, asked here in the dawn light after a night of revelations, carried the weight of a new vow, one freely given, not coerced. "I will try," I said, unable to make a more definitive promise yet. "If you will try to be the man I know you can be, the man who protects without controlling, who loves without possessing." It wasn't a perfect answer, not the unqualified acceptance he wanted. But it was honest, and in that honesty lay the seeds of something that might, with time and effort, grow into true love. Dante nodded, accepting the conditional nature of my response. "Then we have an agreement, Mrs. Vittori." He held out his hand, as if we were sealing a business deal. I took it, but instead of shaking it, I pulled him to me, rising on tiptoes to press my lips to his. He froze for an instant, surprised by my initiative, then responded with carefully restrained passion. When we parted, his eyes were dark with emotion. "Does this mean our honeymoon continues?" "It means a new beginning," I corrected, "for both of us." He smiled. A real smile, reaching his eyes, transforming his face. "I can work with that." As the sun rose over the Amalfi coast, painting the sea gold, I stood in my husband's arms, no longer a captive but a choice maker. The path ahead would be difficult, complicated by his world and our history. But for the first time since I'd met Dante Vittori, I felt something I'd thought lost forever. Hope. Not just for escape, but for something far more daring, the possibility that the man who'd locked doors could learn to open them. That the woman who'd been captive could choose to stay. That together, we might find a middle path between his darkness and my light, creating something neither of us could have built alone. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was messy, uncertain, fraught with challenges. But it was real. It was ours. And for now, that was enough.